My name is Debbie Scheer, and I am the co-founder of Debbie Scheer Speaks. I am a benefit auctioneer, I'm a professional MC, and a humorist, or as many people prefer the name comedian. So I was VP of Education and Training. My now ex-wife and I had adopted our first child, and the salary of a nonprofit employee versus the cost of daycare was such that we decided I would stay home. So I left my job and ended up staying home with my son. And I was home for about, I can't remember, 3-4 years. And my then wife, out of the blue one night at dinner, decided to share with me that she wanted a divorce, which really, now looking back, so grateful for that revelation that she had and willingness to share, because that started this trajectory. So I was, as most people are who get news that seems shocking, I was scared, nervous, unsure, what was I going to do? And I thought, I'm very scared. I'm going to try something that feels scarier to take my mind off the first scary thing. The scariest thing I could think of was skydiving, but that was not gonna happen. I had two young kids, so I decided to try stand-up comedy. And I did, and I made it through that first set, and that just started the snowball to doing more comedy, creating comedy and education shows for areas that I felt there was a need, doing a lot of MC work, a lot of speaking, and then eventually going to auctioneering school, and now working full-time as an MC and an auctioneer, so I partner with nonprofits as a fundraising consultant. My love is really partnering with nonprofits, helping them create a fundraising event that's financially and emotionally meaningful. In all seriousness, in the moment, it was less expensive than therapy, which I couldn't afford in that moment. And I love storytelling. And I think comedy is a great avenue to share stories. And I love connecting with audiences. And that's prevalent through all of my career choices. I think what caused me to make that choice was just, what else is there? And what is the worst thing that can happen? And for a comedian, the worst thing, well, I will only speak for myself, is nobody laughs, right? Nobody laughs, you don't get that reaction. And I thought, well, if that's the worst thing, I'll probably be able to live through that. And I will tell you, as a woman in that industry, when I got off the stage and I thought, I'm still here. I didn't pass out, I like all of my biggest fears. It did open up something that said, I can probably do other things that seem out of reach. For women in business, there are a lot of risks around every corner. I don't know if I just ignored those risks or pretended they weren't there, or just thought they're not gonna be as big as I think they are and we're just gonna go for it. Now, there are a lot of women in comedy, but comedy is still, there are a lot of men. Auctioneering, for sure. There are far fewer females in auctioneering. And I see that all the time, from what an older male auctioneer is allowed to look like and what he can get away with versus what females need to look like. Just the way we conduct ourselves on stage, I feel, is always under a microscope. And I have been to events as a guest where there are white male auctioneers or male auctioneers, and I think, wow, imagine if I did that on stage. Sexist language. Inappropriate behavior, right? Using shame to motivate. There seems to be a bit of a pass that's given. And a lot of that's just cultural, right? Our expectation of how a woman should look or needs to look in order to be successful is very different from our expectation of how a man shows up. When your passion is something that you can make a living at, and you can also support your family, that's such a gift. And so I think that, to me, being able to say, I'm doing what I truly feel I'm supposed to be doing, that feels like the ultimate win, for lack of a better word. Being a mom of 2 teenage males and trying to have a career, it is hard. And that's the thread that runs through, right? Trying to balance all the things and having to say no to things because family first, it can be hard. Sometimes we think moms are their kids are everything they are, their kids always come first, but it is still hard to have to pass up on something that you know is good for your career because you have a crisis at home or something's happening with your kids. That's still a hard decision, even if it's the right decision. I think societally speaking, there's an expectation that moms drop everything. They are the ones that handle anything that's happening with the family. I'm not saying that's good, bad, right, or wrong. I just think when that's the expectation, it can be hard to say, no, let's pause and think about this, right? Like, I've got to balance family, career. I have found myself recently really sitting and thinking, what's next? What do I want to pull more of into my life, my career? It's been a tough thing to sit with. It's really, where am I going to be most needed and how can I be in best service? And I think things will shift for me a little bit, but I'm not exactly sure what that will look like. But it's more of something's coming and it's gonna be great. I just can't name it yet. I'm gonna be 57 next week, and I think about that a lot, especially when you're on stage and what your audience expects to see on stage. I know we live in a world that says we need to fight ageism, which, believe me, we do, and we're just looking at content and how you can connect with the audience, but we have all been so programmed to view people in a certain way that it is hard. I know male auctioneers that are working well into their 70s. I don't know a lot of women who are doing that. I definitely wake up at 2 or 3 a.m. and I think, are things really gonna be okay? Let's see what can occupy my brain for 2 hours. But I have learned over the course of years, right? Going through a scary divorce, not knowing what's gonna happen, not knowing what my career would look like. And at each milestone, I've really tried to sit down and say, let's look at where you were and where you are now, and remind yourself everything's gonna be okay. Comparison culture is so incredibly harmful, and I don't think anything good comes from it. I have friends who say, no, it makes you more competitive in your drive. I disagree. I think it creates a lot of anxiety and a lot of depression, two things that I battle with, and I don't think that's helpful. Going back to social media, what we see out there is such a carefully crafted marketing images, right? What it needs to look like. Find your tribe. If we can truly support women in the ways that we need to be supported for each other, which might be you're supporting a competitor, and that might not feel great initially, but you're really building a community, we will all be okay.